Hello and welcome to this 8th edition of Leaders of Tomorrow, India's only daily enabling platform for small businesses. Over the past 7 years, we've understood what matters the most to you, the entrepreneur. And in year 8, we're taking head-on 2 of your most pressing concerns, that of funding and mentoring. I'm Sananda Jayasheelan, tonight bringing you part 2 of an exclusive conversation with V Vaidyanathan of IDFC First Bank. In this interview, I asked him what he thinks of all the reforms we're seeing so far on the part of the government when it comes to putting the economy back on the fast track, what he would do if he were FM for a day, and also his views for small businesses. Take a listen. So we were talking about the fact that, if you had a wish list, if you were finance minister for a day, what you'd perhaps like to see. I want to pick up on some of the announcements that we've heard very recently from the finance minister to talk about the economy. First and foremost, she said that, the world economy is at about 3.2%. We could see some sort of a slowdown. India, therefore, is in a good place. So everything is looking great on the economy. Would you agree?
Definitely. Can you disagree with that?
Okay.
Right, you can't, because end of the day, fact is that structurally and a macroeconomic sense, India is strong. Like we talked about, inflation is low structurally for a long period of time. Government borrowings are under fiscal deficit under control. So I think that gives headroom for being able to stimulate the economy to the extent that the government is doing it now. So I don't disagree with that entirely. I think we are talking about a lot of issues for the last maybe 3 or 4 months about consumption and all that.
Yeah.
But the fact is that many of these things are cyclical. We've seen this before. We've seen this in 2008-9. Then we saw this in 13-14 when inflation was high. We saw this in 2016 when demon was there. So it's a cycle. It will pass.
Okay. What perhaps is also triggering a lot of the concern is specific sectors. The auto sector, for instance, a 20-year kind of dip that industry has seen. You're saying cyclical, so is that the message you want to give our viewers, saying that don't be too concerned, things will change? See,
whenever we have to look at these things, we have to just pull the story forward for many years. Sure. And just not react to every day's daily news. Daily news, you will carry it all the time. But if you take a 5-year forward, you become a $5 trillion economy. You really think along the way these things will not sort themselves out? It will. But more important reason why it will sort it out is that the government is listening. I think it's very important. Look at the number of meetings finance minister has done with the stakeholders. I was also among one of them at one point of time. But of course, there were so many. Look at the number of meetings Governor Shaktikanta Das is doing with every segment, private sector, small finance banks, NBFCs. So if RBI listens, the government listens, to me, it's a huge encouragement.
Okay. You're saying $5 trillion economy. What in your mind is it going to take for us to get there? What else would you like to see?
I would definitely say reforms. I don't think genuinely we should take the $5 trillion economy for granted either. Of course, whether it will happen in 5 years or 8 years, it will always happen. But you've got to make it faster. If you've got to go to 8%, 9% growth, because we need it. And if you want to really stand strong in the world at a 5 trillion economy and shoot to 10 trillion from there, then we need to do active reforms. I think the last 5 years, like we discussed, there are reforms like GST and all that. I think the next set of reforms are going to be critical for that. I think agricultural reforms is a very big factor. I think that somehow eluded the Indian system for the last 15, 20 years. Labor reforms is a very big thing. Banking sector reforms is a very big thing. If we can pull off, if we can bring government stakes, at least enable it to come below 50%, I think these will be very significant things.
Okay. We were talking about the auto space, and I just want to revisit that. Some announcements coming. Are you happy with that? The FM saying that perhaps, so for instance, BS4, that will be extended to 2020, talking about, government departments looking at buying of these new vehicles, etc. Do you think at least somewhere that sort of kickstart is happening? Are you happy?
Of course, because there was a lot of doubt in people's minds, about these issues. But obviously put it away and saying that, look, your vehicle is going to be valid for a longer period of time. These are nice things to do. But I think along the way, as the consumption picks up, it's a cycle after all. The auto industry should come back and government should focus on it. Honestly, I have always felt that this 28% GST on auto vehicles was rather high because, of course, the FM and the government have the reasons because they got to get taxed from somewhere after all, and they probably thought it was a rich man's product. But whenever they get the opportunity, it's an entire chain that depends. And I would actually wish that the peak GST rate comes down to 18%. It's a wish list. I think government will probably do it when they can.
Okay. Very briefly, I want to talk about some of the moves that have been mentioned specifically for the small businesses, MSMEs. For instance, one and continuation of the GST thought was that the refunds would happen in 30 days. We spoke with Nitin Gadkari, the Minister for MSME, who said that now stricter action is going to be taken against those businesses which don't pay their MSME customers in a period of 45 days. All of that good? Do you see that being implemented in spirit as it's being announced?
All of these things are fantastic, but I think the more significant ones than that are the ones that they have done in many of the things like the Startup India. In Startup India, I don't know, it has probably escaped the attention of many people, but for the first 3 years of a startup, there is no tax. There are 9 labor laws for which it only just plain self-certification is enough. For 3 years, no labor inspector can enter your office, and not that they can't, but I'm saying they don't need to as per the requirement.
Sure.
So then there are, I think, 80% discount on patenting fees, 50% discount on registration. So when, and I think a lot of startups have got registered under the platform. Only thing I think it's got to do register after 2016 for the startup to be. So, for example, there was this Mudra loan, 6 lakh crores. It's a big deal. CGTSME unto 1 crore. I read of another program, the Pradhan Mantri Employment Generation Program, where projects itself are being subsidized, not interest rate. Projects. You go and set up a project in a rural area, I think 60 or 80% is subsidized. Now, I feel that such sort of intervention at a grassroots level are good things. Okay. Now, these things will show because the intention is established. I think these things will show in the show.
While it's definitely sounding good, I guess the job of a journalist is to bring in that, that but. And I want to read some figures, and this is an RBI report that's come out in June of this year saying that the total addressable demand for formal external credit, this is for MSMEs, is at 37 trillion. Supply those at 14.5 trillion. So there's a credit gap of between 22 odd
lakh
trillion.
crores.
Yeah. Speaking with us, and when we did pose this question to the Minister for MSME, he said, yes, banks are not lending perhaps as much as they should be to small businesses. Why do you think that's happening?
First of all, I agree with that comment. Okay. Because if you see the structure of credit distribution in the country, it's a very instructive when you read it. Commercial credit in India, if you take out consumer, just commercial credit in India is 65 lakh crores. And you know how much is the credit given to large corporates out of 65 lakh crores? It is 45 lakh crores. And if you take the lending done to 25 crore and above ticket size and above, it is 50 lakh crores out of 65 is just this. So obviously large corporates have got the credit, and the small corporates yet in India have been short on credit. I think we can deny that. I agree with your numbers. Now, I think that is set for change. And I think next 5 years to 10 years, you will see a completely new behavior in India. The reason is that, number one, I don't know if you're aware or not, but the delinquency on the small entrepreneurs is actually better than the large corporate. Secondly, now with so much of data available through digitization, GST data, bank data, now the amount of parallel economy based transactions is reducing. So there is a need for banks to lend there. And there's also demand there. I'm quite confident what we experienced last 50 years will not be the benchmark of what we will see in the next 5 years.
Okay. Speaking of delinquencies and referring to that same RBI report, NPAs for small businesses pretty much flatlined at about 8.5 to 8.6%. Large businesses, on the other hand, seeing it going from 15 to 20% in that same period. So where do you think that mismatch is really happening then?
Again, data. It's very ironical. Large corporates, the one we talked about, 100 crores and above ticket size, that NPA is 18.1%. The 25 crore to 100 crore ticket size, which is the medium size lending, that NPA in India is 17.5%. Sure. The SME, which is typically the 1 crore to 25 crore, that NPA is close to about 10.5%. And the micro entrepreneur NPA is about 8.5%. So you're right. Now, therefore, to therefore say that the focus should naturally be in the small entrepreneur is a no-brainer. I think we should all do it, and at least at our end, that is a core business. It's not a good business to do. It's the core business. That's what we love to do. And I think we have set for ourselves a target that in the next 5 years, in that space and consumption, we want to take our book to close to 1 lakh crores. We want to disburse close to 2 lakh crores, and net of repayment, we'll have a book of 1 lakh crores.
Okay. Time for a quick break. On the other side, we will continue bringing you highlights of that exclusive conversation with V Vaidyanathan. Just stay tuned. Welcome back. With us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. Tonight on the show, bringing you highlights of an exclusive conversation with V Vaidyanathan of IDFC First Bank. I just want to go back to the fact, you were talking about the CGT MSE that the government has collateral free up to 2 crores. But we get a sense from a lot of the small businesses who speak with us who say that it's not really happening. There seems to be that disconnect. So my question to you really is, how perhaps can it be fixed? Do you think it's misinformation? Do you think maybe small businesses don't have access to the right information? Or do you think it's just taking time?
I think that there are 2 problems here. One is in terms of a knowledge of many of these entrepreneurs of even the government schemes is not there.
Sure.
You do a poll of 100 entrepreneurs, I can bet you not more than even 5 or 10 would have probably known of the scheme, because I believe that we could do better with information. Number 2, definitely a lot of small entrepreneurs were dealing in cash, and it is very hard to evaluate. After all, a banker is dealing with public money, and it's sometimes hard for them to lend when the customer is not showing income on the books. So one of the key changes that have happened in India in the last 5 years is the extent of people now demonstrating the income on the books.
Okay.
And that is making a big difference. I'll give you one example. We run a program in our own bank where we lend to entrepreneurs on the basis of their bank statement cash flows. Not on the basis of income.
Okay.
He may be posting losses, but how much money is in the bank? And that product for us has grown by close to 60% in the last 1 year, which means that people are leaving more money in the banks rather than transacting in cash.
Sure.
I think this fundamental change will bring a change. I can tell you that it is the interest of banks to lend there.
So the RBI is saying a couple of things really when it comes to why perhaps this lending to small businesses is seeing some bit of a slowdown. And one is the high cost of acquisition of these businesses. And the second is also in terms of having the sort of security, because books are not transparent. I do remember when we spoke to you first 2 years ago, you said one of the biggest challenges that you see for small businesses is that their books are not transparent. Have things changed?
Definitely. I mentioned that to you. I think there are a lot of detractors for demonetization in India,
okay,
depending on which side you're on.
Yeah.
But I have actually experienced that the extent of people who are now describing and showing the income on the books has gone up sharply.
Okay.
I'll give you one example. When we collect money from customers, when they return their checks, we're close to about 6-7 million customers to whom we present the checks and collect. Close to about 8,000 customers used to come and pay through internet channels to us. The rest would pay through clearing of the checks. Now that number after demonetization moved from 8,000 to 32,000.
Okay.
And today the number is 200,000 a month. So which means after demonetization, people's habit to come to the internet and pay, the mobile and pay, the Paytms and pay, the wallets and pay, that conduct has definitely changed. So I think that if India continues on the path of digitizing its economy, small entrepreneurs will get credit.
Okay. We'll have asking the experts like yourself who come on the show about what should be the role of the government. Should it be a hands-off approach and let innovation thrive? Or should it be, you have a regulatory framework and you ensure that entrepreneurs are really sort of sticking to those rules that have been made? What is the best approach for encouraging entrepreneurship and innovation?
I believe somehow that for the government to completely stay hands-off would not be an appropriate approach. The current approach of the government to say that I will give certain benefits for small entrepreneurs, like we talked about earlier, set up a project cost, I give you some benefits and so on, I give you some income tax break for 3 years, like at Startup India. These are specific interventions focused at the bottom of the pyramid. I think that a government, of course, should quickly, do away or maybe relax the labor laws that make life difficult. So government's role, in my opinion, is to play a facilitative role and not get into business itself. I'll give you 2 examples of facilitative role.
Sure.
One is how the government has created the ecosystem of the Aadhaar bank account and mobile connections and all that. Now, government doesn't need to get into business, but by creating the platform, everybody is benefiting from the platform, right? So government has created ecosystem. One more benefit I would expect. I would say that right now there's a lot of focus in the country by saying, when will the peak corporate tax rate come to 25%? Yeah. I say, let it come when it comes. It's great if it comes. Our corporate is a large corporate, we'll pay whatever rate it will be. But I would say, can the tax rate for the small entrepreneur be as low as 5% or 2% or 10%? They're also paying 30%, mind you. So if we can have a tiered structure, like personal income tax or progressive, I have always been advocating that if we have a tiered corporate tax structure where small entrepreneurs just pay 5%, they'll be thrilled. 1 million of them will probably pay 5%. They will have no incentive to then keep it in cash. And we can spur that side. Large corporates are fine.
Yeah. So speaking of the corporate tax rate, there's been some announcement on the angel tax for startups, and that's a positive mode. Are you happy with that?
Yeah, I think that's good. I think it's lifted the spirits when they've done that. I'm more interested, frankly, on the small entrepreneur. I believe they are having a very difficult time because they borrow at the highest cost. They have no negotiating power as compared to the large corporate. They cannot hire the best employee. Their infrastructure is weaker, and per unit cost of everything for the small entrepreneur is more expensive, even electricity and water. So therefore, I think that a break on that end, for example, if you said that in the first crore of tax, income, you pay just 5%. I don't know what it does to the financials, but I would really wish we do that.
One last announcement that I want to sort of go into that the FM made, and that was as far as what is being called as tax harassment, right? We've seen some very unfortunate high-profile cases of late where large entrepreneurs have said they're perhaps being harassed by the income tax authorities. The FM announcing, saying we will make a centralized department to ensure that doesn't happen. Do you think that's good? Would you have perhaps wished to see it sooner, really, in India?
Yes, I think that it's really good that the government is recognizing this issue. Of course, with greater electronification, generally speaking, I think with the centralization of databases, things have improved. But I think what is more important is that the government being sensitive about this, I think is a big thing. This is the first time in the last few years, first time in my life that we are hearing the government say on the budget day that thank you taxpayers. Have you heard that? Sunanda, you've been around for a while. Have you heard that before? I don't think so. So I think the fact that government recognizes it, I think is a good thing.
Okay.
I hope they work on it.
Okay. As we are winding down this interview, then I want to sort of end this on a soft note. First and foremost, if you had one piece of advice out of your professional journey that you've seen, if you had one piece of advice that you would like to leave our entrepreneurs with, what would it be?
I definitely deal with the small entrepreneurs all the time. As I said, I've personally been dealing with this ecosystem for the last 15, 20 years. I would say, the whole Indian ecosystem is changing so dramatically. Why are you still dealing in cash? Why are you keeping parallel books of accounts? And we can see how India is digitizing, we can see how the country is digitizing, how the government is digitizing, how banks are digitizing, how cash and checks are going out of order, how UPI and mobile transactions and digital transactions are all up 3x in the last 2 years. You are seeing it around us. Yeah. So why deal in cash? Number one. Number two, I would say that professionalize and bring quality management, into your respective institutions, the result can be explosive. Because as long as things stay proprietorships and small family, you don't have economies of scale or talent or skills. So I do think that we should look to these two things.
You've been a part of the Leaders of Tomorrow Awards over the past many years. My question to you is, are you happy with the kind of innovation that you're seeing the small businesses are doing, and anything that you would like to see perhaps changing?
The kind of stunning startup opportunities and innovations we are seeing among small entrepreneurs is quite amazing. By the way, innovation and startups doesn't mean really billion-dollar companies and all that stuff. We just see small entrepreneurs just migrating and pivoting and creating new business models on the new digital ecosystem, internet and mobile and all that. We are finding new generation of traditional entrepreneurs who are the young 21, 22-year-old who just want to do a bye to their parents' businesses. They don't want to do diamonds business. I know of someone who says no to his father's gems business. He doesn't want to do diamonds business, doesn't want to touch cash, and he's setting up his own app system. So when I look at these things, I feel inspired that look, you don't have to be big to be successful. You can be small and be successful if we can play the new digital ecosystem.
Sure.
If we play the old physical ecosystem, we will fail.
Okay, my last question to you, and I asked you earlier what was next for you in terms of the bank, but I want to end it by asking you what next for you personally.
You know, I haven't landed on Earth yet ever since the deal is done.
Over the past year, yeah.
Over the past year, I'm just so happy that, we merged. I told you the erstwhile IDFC bank is a great bank. It's got all things well set to get started. And Capital First erstwhile Capital First had good models. We put it together. I believe this combined bank is set for fantastic growth over the next 5 years. Not as overall, not wholesale and all that, but on the retail front, 25% CAGR, 5 years to take the loan book to 1 lakh crore. I can see it. I think it's there.
Okay.
Second thing I think is that I feel that banking licenses are hard to get in India. It's so hard. So and it's a sacred thing. So I almost sometimes can't believe my what I landed, and I therefore feel that that I have one lifetime, I have one opportunity, and I have a banking platform, and I've got to make it count. That's what's on my mind, and I think we're really going to create, or we believe we can make the world's finest retail bank. I'm obsessed with that idea, and I'm going to go for it.
And now that you've shared with us that you also are quite the singer and that you keep uploading your videos, I'm sure your employees are going to look forward to more and more of those in the year coming up. Thank you so much for your time here on the Leaders of Tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Ananda.
Completely out of time on this episode of the Leaders of Tomorrow. Our contact details up in just a second on your screens. Do let us know your feedback, your suggestions, your advice. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.